Welcome back to Spoiler Warning, everyone. We are back in the wide, wacky world of wrestling to talk plentiful news about the wacky world indeed. We are in a slightly different setting. You may see some wood over there that does come from a door frame, which is over there. That currently doesn't have a door frame, and I'm currently fixing some floorboards there, so there's a lot going on. But here we are to talk wrestling. And our top story will be as regards Wargames, as regards John Cena. There's a bit on Nikki Bella having a heel turn as well. We're going to be talking about Chris Jericho trying to convince the WWE to sign him back. We're going to be talking why John Cena versus Dominic Mysterio happened on Raw. We're going to talk Damien Priest. We're going to talk World Championship matches for Wargames. We're going to talk Nikki Bella. We're going to talk Nixon Newell and Miranda Elise. We're going to talk Kairi Sane getting a bit banged up. We're going to talk Drew McIntyre's suspension. We're also going to be talking a little bit about some people who watch some spoiler warning. We're going to be talking as well about planning for a new project in AEW. So there's still quite a bit to cover. Be sure to hit like as we get to our first piece. We're going to start with Wargames. Now, Wargames is not so much the John Cena show as has been at times mentioned and has at times been considered to be a possibility. Wargames is a little bit insane and a little bit chaos at this point in time. It was supposed to be built around a build towards Seth Rollins versus CM Punk and also an eventual build towards Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns is still expected to be a part of Wargames on the side of CM Punk. However, Logan Paul, as we know, has now replaced Seth Rollins. That means we now so far have, under the guise of Paul Heyman, a team that features Logan Paul, Bron Breakker, and Bronson Reed. And yes, the expectation is that we are going to be seeing more from Brock Lesnar. It being Paul Heyman's team, Brock Lesnar seems a very obvious and very easy option for it. On the other side, we currently have Jey Uso, CM Punk, and Cody Rhodes. This will mean that there are no World Championship matches during Wargames, because both World Champions will be in the Wargames match. I wouldn't be upset if they try and go for a winner-take-all environment, especially when you consider that the good guys are undoubtedly going to win this one. Undoubtedly going to win this one. We also saw at the end of Raw the build for the women's Wargames match. We saw the Kabuki Warriors, Lash Legend and Nia Jax on one side, and on the other side Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. There is obviously an open spot for one more person. I just don't necessarily think they're going to take it. A 4v4 for me makes a lot more sense, but you never can tell. We may end up with Stephanie Vaquer joining the team of faces, and now Nikki Bella joining the team of heels. So, a lot of craziness, a lot of carnage, and a lot of opportunities for people who don't necessarily get those huge moments at times. The men's does seem fairly locked in with huge names and very few opportunities for people on the build, whereas the women's Wargames, while we do have Io Sky, who's obviously very experienced, she's not been at the top level in WWE for that long. Lash Legend obviously is getting a huge chance here that I'm very excited for as well. We really get to see what she can do in that environment. I have some concerns about Kairi Sane, but we'll talk about those later. We will talk about those later. Marcel is asking a question that I'd like to ask all of you. Marcel is saying, who do you think is a mystery man for the match tonight? Now, Liam has given us a full breakdown on what will be happening during tonight's Smackdown. Advertised tonight is Jey Uso versus The Miz in the Last Time Is Now tournament. That does create a pretty good opportunity for Logan Paul and his lackeys in the Vision to get involved. We have LA Knight versus a mystery opponent, and that is what we're asking. That is what Marcel is asking. Who do you think is the mystery opponent? We have Jade Cargill defending her championship against B-Fab, another match that looks unlikely now to be a Survivor Series. I don't really know what matches beyond the Wargames matches are lined up for Survivor Series, and we don't exactly have long to make them happen. We have Sami Zayn versus Solo Sikoa as well. So, plenty of Smackdown fun. Let me know who you think will be involved in that match against LA Knight. Liam also says, per WrestleVotes, WWE Smackdown is set to move back to a 3-hour format beginning on January 2nd. Liam also says, and sources this via WrestleNomics, thank you for this, Triple H has been deposed in the WWE shareholder lawsuit. We've been expecting this for a while. The lawsuit against WWE and Vince McMahon is going to be contentious, and it's going to take a long time. When you're investigating the culture of such a major company, this is always going to be a very difficult situation. And yes, conversations have already taken place about the possibility of a presidential pardon if it should get to that point. Now, we don't know if it's going to get to that point, but somebody wants to get ahead of the possibility, and if it does get to that point, they want a presidential pardon ready to go, and they're willing to do what it takes to get it. Always interesting. Bailey is of the opinion that SmackDown is a bit meh, and I kind of agree. All the exciting things seem to be happening on Raw at the minute, as well as a championship which is a little more competed for. CM Punk as World Heavyweight Champion works. There's plenty of people who already have, are enemies of him. Whereas Cody Rhodes, yeah, you got Drew McIntyre, but not anymore, you don't. So, Liam, we will be discussing that one, don't worry. Welcome, Michael. Good to see you. Liam says, John Cena says his upcoming match at his final Raw next week at Madison Square Garden is his favourite one. Ooh. Bailey says, not that they would do it, but what one of the 3 hours of SmackDown featured NXT talent at a main roster setting. Yeah, they're definitely not going to do that. There was 3-hour WCW Nitros where they dedicated the first hour to no wrestling at all. It was not considered a success. My nose is very red. Not sure why that is. Liam says, WWE need to quickly find their next top main event attraction storyline of 2026 because it looks scary after he retires. Also mentioned the Saudi Tourism Board and Events Authority has requested for John Cena to be part of the 2026 Royal Rumble in some capacity, but Cena has politely declined the offer. As I've mentioned previously, there is a lot of people very eager to try and keep John Cena for longer. There is one person who does not want that, and it is, of course, John Cena. So it really doesn't matter what anyone else wants. Sean says, hello, Tom. Welcome, Sean. Chris believes the next big star is Dominic Mysterio. There is a huge push coming for Dominic Mysterio, and we're only seeing the beginning of it now. Calvin says, hey, Tom. Hello, Calvin. Declan, not really news on Lynch. Not in this one. Michael said, lots of news. Indeed. Doing well, thank you. Who am I? What am I? Eric, I have not watched Blood and Guts, no, but I've seen clips of it. Lucas says, imagine if Jimmy joins Logan Paul's team. I don't think it's an impossibility. I really don't. Ray says, I was disappointed to see Mike Santana losing a TNA title last night in TNA show to Frankie Kazarian. There is no possibility of a Fiend return. I do unfortunately have to say, The Fiend was a one-person character, and that person is no longer with us. Rickan says, I honestly was disappointed with Cody joining the men's, but I understand they have to replace Jacob, correct? Correct. The intention was for Jacob Fatu to be in that spot. Bailey says, there's a huge imbalance on face versus heels on the titles. Becky, Jade, and Chelsea the only heel champions. Anyone else? Not really. I mean, Kabuki Warriors. Worth pointing out, I think. Guys, we have 60 people watching, 20 likes. If you're able to, please remember that thumbs up. It does guarantee more people watching. No one will portray a new Fiend. I don't believe there'll be a new Fiend. Only one person could do it. Dave says, I don't think Wargames will be as good as Blood and Guts. I will not be comparing them directly. I think WWE tend to play it a little less extreme. So a lot of people thinking Joe Hendry could be the natural opponent for LA Knight. I'd be excited by that. Chris suggests Baron Corbin, someone who John Cena does want to wrestle against and has not had the opportunity to take that spot. Bailey says it could be Joe Hendry, but it should be Matt Cardona. Daniel says, hey everyone, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you too. Rickan, I'm really not sure. I've got no information on it. Declan, no. Marcel says, I think I want Edge. It'll probably be Joe Hendry. Travel says, hi Tom, how are you? Doing well, thank you, Travel. Welcome to the show. Rickan says, who do you think is Solo's mystery opponent? I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards an Eric Rowan, to be honest. I kind of am. Bailey says, if they bring Brock Lesnar out tonight to face him, LA Knight must be in the doghouse. LA Knight is not in anyone's doghouse. If they bring Brock Lesnar out, then they will have brought Brock Lesnar out. But I don't find that likely, given that, he's more likely for War Games. Jan says, one more for each team in the women's War Games is actually Becky on the heel side, AJ on the face. There isn't enough time for that, really, and I find it unlikely. But we'll see. I don't think it'll be Becky. Eric believes in Joe Hendry. Christopher Leclerc says, I think Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. Ken says, say, Tom, who do you think is next for Alexa Bliss besides War Games? Oh, what do you think is next? I think she'll continue to compete for the Tag Team Championships until WrestleMania time. Eric will be talking about Drew McIntyre. Good evening. Eric Veras. Another Eric. I'm doing well, thank you. Hopefully you are too. Juan, we will be talking about Tegan Knox. Calvin says, move SmackDown back up to 3 hours doesn't really help. Plus, it won't be 3 hours until January. Yeah, 3-hour shows, never really been a fan of them. Don't work for me. It don't work for me. Noob says, hello, Mr. Colohue. How are you doing today? Say his name and he appears. Joe Hendry is now signed to the WWE. Sean says, Tom, you did call it right. Kabuki Warriors did dethrone Charlotte and Alexa. I wish the match would have waited so Alexa and Charlotte could have broken the most defenses record. They don't want to be breaking every record. Cecil says, the citizen of New Orleans. I looked at Money in the Bank tickets and per my bank account, I will be watching from home. Yeah. It's very sad how things have gone now. Ray says, Jade Cargill versus BFAB is the reason I'm watching TNA Turning Point instead of SmackDown. BFAB has done nothing to earn a title match. Jade Cargill is requesting BFAB. Always a fun one, always worth mentioning, but quite often the first championship challenge, as it were, is someone that the new champion has chosen. So like Steve Austin chose Mick Foley. Eric says, I think the next big wave of stars are going to be Oba, Braun, Dom, Sol, Tatum, Izzy and Lola Vice. Dominic Mysterio, yes. You forgot Braun Breaker. They're not messing around when they call him the future. Dave says, Triple H and TKO is the reason I'm falling out of love with WWE. Ashley says, any chance it's Jericho? There's always a chance. Dave says, Edge is still contracted to AEW, which is true. Aled says, hey Tom, do you think Roman Reigns will be in the War Games match and what do you think Cena does at War Games? Yes, I think Roman Reigns will be in War Games. I think Cena will stay at home. Sean says, do you think the way Julia lost the title at Chelsea was a burial? No. Kevin says, 3 hours of SmackDown is good because more talent getting opportunity on TV. Declan says, do you see Maxine dethroning Becky? No, not at all. Hi, Kevin. Billy says, the move to 3-hour SmackDown is probably from USA Network. The ratings are favourable and they need more content. Sledgehammer says, Tom, you've said Joe Hendry's name a few times now, but I still only see you on screen. That's because he's come out of this cupboard. Someone else used to live in this cupboard. We haven't seen Connor in a little while. Joe Hendry will have come out of this cupboard, but you can't see him. Etc. Eric says, Jade Cargill versus BFAB is a non-title match. Give it time. Yeah, Liam, I said I think he'll stay at home. Haven't heard anything about a potential match. Not personally. It would mean, given that this was his his third to last, as it were, this week, well, last week's Raw, next week's he'd only have 2 left. If War Games is his second to last one, then it would only mean Boston. Saturday night main event. Not much time to build it, but I assume he doesn't really need much time at this point. A rematch would be surprising, Aled. Would be surprising as he's not got many dates left. So why use them for 2? Maybe he will be in War Games. We'll find out. Exciting news. Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has apparently been unhappy in AEW for a while now and is eager to find a way out. As such, for the past year or so, he's been trying to convince WWE to bring him back. His tactics on this are extremely similar to CM Punk's tactics way back when, before he returned at Survivor Series 2023. Essentially, using the media to create a buzz and to make the WWE take notice of that buzz, so that they have no choice but to consider him the only logical option to sign. There are some concerns in WWE. One of the main reasons that WWE are reticent about doing this is that there are concerns that this could upset and unsettle CM Punk, because there was an issue with Nick Hausman, who WWE are aware may have been working with CM Punk to generate that demand. There was a... how to phrase this in a way that protects me? There was a suggestion that Nick Hausman was accusing Chris Jericho of something, and there was a suggestion that this accusation came from CM Punk. So CM Punk and Chris Jericho, known to not be the best of friends, might still firmly be in the camp of enemies. So while there is some interest in Chris Jericho, they are not willing to risk the good faith and goodwill of CM Punk in order to bring him into play. Cool. Calvin says, if Austin Theory is not joining Team Vision at Survivor Series, where would that leave him? At home. Pretty much. They need to come up with something new for it. Sean, what's suspicious is that Wrestle Humble has no source whatsoever, and that's utter garbage to my knowledge. Funny. Dave says, Vince Russo said, and then I stopped reading. Hector says, if Triple H and CM Punk can work together in harmony again, anything is possible. True. Kevin says, I'm sorry, but Jericho needs to retire. It's 2025. We're here for the future, not the past. Fiend says, I'm sure they could squash that beef. Bailey says, with Cena retiring, how many years before we see WWE setting up the Roman Reigns retirement tour? Less than 5. Declan says, Seth Rollins is an enemy of CM Punk. Very true. Very true. Kevin says, do you think Drew McIntyre joins the Wargames match? No. He has other things to be focusing on at this point in time. John Cena has been asking to work with Dominic Mysterio for years, essentially for 5 years, since the debut of Dominic Mysterio in the Eye for an Eye feud between Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins. John Cena sees a huge amount of potential in this guy, sees the Eddie Guerrero in this guy, and wants to try and make sure Dominic gets the rub of the green. For a while, Dominic was also a leading contender to retire John Cena. In fact, that was the case for about 4 months. For about 4 months, Dominic Mysterio was going to be the guy who retired John Cena, until that decision was taken out of John Cena's hands. The win on Raw for Cena was due to Cena refusing to let go of the concept, to let go of the idea of beating Dominic Mysterio, and for the opportunity to be a transitional champion, get that last championship he's never won, and cement himself as what Triple H believes is the literal greatest of all time. Triple H was not joking. He wasn't making anything up. He wasn't blowing smoke. He legitimately believes that John Cena is the greatest of all time. Now, this is apparently a match that was planned to be on Survivor Series Wargames, but it has been pulled and moved to here due to a scheduling conflict. When I've asked why, all I was told, once again, was that it's a scheduling conflict. Make of that what you will. Let me know if you think he's going to be in Wargames, because scheduling conflict can mean a lot of things. One says, well, Tom, that means TK definitely won't bring back Jericho. Last thing Tony Khan needs a disgruntled talent on TV not committed to him. You'd be amazed how many of them are in that camp. Sean says, do you see Cena holding the title until his retirement match? Yes, he's got 3 more appearances in total. If he doesn't, then what the hell was the point? Liam says, who do you think Cena will face in his final Raw appearance? Genuinely not sure. Excited to find out. The only people we can say for sure are the ones who already have matches. Sean says, Mark Henry believes Joe Hendry should win the tournament and retire Cena. Maybe that's the plan for Raw. Michael says, I do not get the appeal in Dominic. He's one of the reasons why I stopped watching. I very much do, but I think it's one of those, if you're a fan of more traditional wrestling, Dominic Mysterio isn't for you. But if you're a fan of like Attitude Era Carnage, and shithousery, here's for you. Ray says, I was very happy that Tia Hale returns to NXT to team with Joe Hendry to have a match for the AAA Mixed Tag Team titles. Chris says, Cena is at Comic-Con Liverpool this weekend. Juan says, when WWE brought back Punk, fans wanted him back and he had huge buzz. Jericho, not so much since he's 55. Bailey says, give John Cena credit for saying no to the Saudis. He could literally ask and get an 8-figure payday if he so choose. Noob says, I believe that the Kabuki Warriors tag team run will be a short run, which will serve as a way to break the team up. I think we're still very early in the day for the team. Declan says, I think Becky will join Asuka's team because of the stare down a few weeks ago, and they're both heels. You would always think, and you always have thought, Declan, that Becky should be in whatever the most important match is, the most focused match is, whatever the main event is. Your opinion has always been, wherever Becky is not good enough. So I'm not surprised by this. Damien Priest has found himself in a bit of a rough spot. Fans have not maintained interest in his overall character, and he's ended up being featured less and less. The World Heavyweight Championship experiment is still considered a success, but the momentum from that run is gone, and another room at the top for Damien Priest seems unfortunately very unlikely at this point in time. While Damien Priest was at least briefly considered to be a top name, that is simply no longer the case. And while the WWE believe he's someone that they could trust with a championship in future, the top championship is not likely to be something that they're willing to share. As I pointed out earlier, there are no World Championship matches planned for Survivor Series, as Wargames will feature both the WWE and World Heavyweight Championships. Nikki Bella turned heel. I mentioned last week that was the plan, and the intention was a Nikki Bella versus Stephanie Vaquer feud as they move towards Wargames. The intention is to give Stephanie Vaquer not just a feud, but also another scalp, to have her beating a relatively big name and a relatively well-known attraction. Nikki Bella, for her part, has volunteered to be pinned, volunteered to be covered, and also is doing a lot of rehearsal with Stephanie Vaquer to make sure that both women have as good a match as they possibly can. So lots of rehearsal time, lots of communication, and lots of goodwill being offered by Nikki Bella. We are 2 likes away from 30. If you can, please hit that thumbs up because we have 71 people here, so hopefully we have enough people for it. Liam says Javon is going to get destroyed on Monday. Sadly, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's been tagged in because it's going to sound really quite fun when he gets chopped. Sean says AJ Lee returns on Raw during Maxine versus Becky. I wouldn't say during, potentially after. Hector says, I sure hope they're not shoehorning Gunter as the retire wrestlers guy. Gunter doesn't need to beat Cena and the IC titles below him. It's such an odd booking decision with younger talent around. There is younger talent around. I don't think they're shoehorning him as a retire wrestlers guy per se. But I also think while you may believe the Intercontinental Championship is below him, he's not below it. The championship sometimes needs bigger names in order to help elevate it so that it can then be used to elevate other people in the future. There is no value in making a championship for people lower down the card. That championship starts to mean something when it's held by someone like John Cena, when it's held by someone like Randy Orton, The Miz, Gunter. You do not make a championship valuable by calling it valuable. You make it valuable by giving it to a big name. That's why Mercedes Money won the TBS Championship. They gave it to a huge name. She has made that championship massive. The person to eventually beat her for it, whoever that may be, is going to get a huge moment out of that. And that is what Gunter did. Sami Zayn got a huge moment out of that. The championship is not beneath him. The championship might just need him. Bailey says the Kairi face turn will be epic. Imagine if she missed Asuka. Liam says, what are the brackets? Who is Rusev and Sheamus facing after winning? WWE had one job. WWE left that door wide open for a reason. They are not at the moment willing to commit to anything because there's so many moving parts. Juan says, Tom, is Jericho unhappy with AEW because of the fans giving him go-away heat or lack of opportunity? Neither. He's mostly frustrated by the new creative structure. He doesn't have the power that he used to. Aled says, do you think they carry on the Cody Alistair stuff tonight, or was it a one-time thing last week to suspend Drew? I would suggest we are going to get another match between them, but it will be a cleaner win. Hector says, to your knowledge, what is Triple H and Jericho's relationship? I know Jericho was a Vince guy, but wasn't sure how him and Triple H got along. They get along okay. They have quite a bit of shared history. I'd argue that they're friendly. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're friends. Which sounds silly, but you'll get me. We all have that person that we're friendly with, but we're not friends. Kevin says, I said this year TNA versus NXT deserve a Wargames match over the main roster. Well, when you look at the talent in the Wargames match, I cannot agree with that. You got to remember, WWE is not about putting on great wrestling matches. WWE is about putting on wrestling matches featuring big names. It's nothing to do with the actual talent in the ring. Eric says Damien Priest needs to go to Raw to win the WWE Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. He had an opportunity for that. Unfortunately, he lost his match. Aled says, do you expect any TNA involvement in the tournament? If so, who'd you like to see? For me, I'd like to see Hendry and Jeff Hardy. I don't necessarily expect it, but I expect it to play out like it is. I expect to see former TNA talent before it's confirmed that they're no longer TNA talent. Liam says, what if one of the mystery opponents is Kevin Owens? Calvin will be shocked if Maxine doesn't win the women's IC title. Well, look forward to being shocked, mate, because that is not happening. Dave says, who's the best big guy? Mark Henry, Big Show, Earthquake, or Typhoon? Great Khali. And Eric says, Triple H and Chris Jericho are frenemies. I think people overuse that word. They're friendly, they're just not friends. Dave says, Wargames won't be as violent as Blood and Guts. True, yeah. WWE have no intention of it being that violent. They have no interest in it being that violent. Most WWE fans don't necessarily care for that level of violence, which is ironic. But primarily because if they want that level of violence, you know what they can do? They can watch Blood and Guts. They have the option. Regarding Nixon Newell and Miranda Elise, both of whom burned some serious bridges with AEW, and to be clear, I may be pronouncing Miranda Elise wrong. I have not been able to get too much information on this, and I haven't necessarily done research into the individual in question. What I will say, though, and this is going to come up on the Wrestling Receipt in the podcast on Monday, Fightful's paywall has reported both that Bryan Danielson has spoken to both women and that Bryan Danielson hasn't spoken to either woman. The latter with an interview with Nixon Newell. So they got the scoop, but they'd already scooped the scoop with the exact opposite information. Not sure how both of these can be true, but you definitely have to pay to find out which it is today. Personally, I'm not willing to pay for that. I'm just not. Calvin believes that LA Knight has been treated poorly because of the fact he's not a Triple H vision. Oh, no. Calvin, unfortunately I have to set that right. Triple H did not like LA Knight. Wrong way around. Vince McMahon did not like LA Knight. Not even slightly. Vince McMahon hated the LA Knight character, had no interest in the LA Knight character, hence Max Dupree. Vince McMahon was seriously changing everything about LA Knight. It is Triple H who brought the LA Knight character back. He is a Triple H vision. He always was a Triple H vision. He's not a Vince guy. Vince hated the character. Declan says, what about God as a mystery opponent he has wrestled in the past? Unfortunately, most people in WWE nowadays haven't found God yet, whereas Shawn Michaels did. Now, admittedly, he found him under a tree in the woods, but he did find him. Liam says the most sensible winner here would be Sheamus. He can beat Crab? Cena? To win the Grand Slam, but I don't think WWE would do that. No. Sheamus is not someone worth elevating for the future in the WWE's eyes. Eric says it feels like Maxine Dupree is in a similar position that Dakota Kai was in before her benching and then release. Not quite. Dakota Kai didn't have Becky Lynch in her corner giving her championship matches. Alex says PWInsider said Mike Santana hasn't shown up for tonight's TNA show, hasn't responded to anyone from TNA trying to contact him. What do you think of this? I don't know. Genuinely no idea. I don't have the same source as PWInsider. Fiend says, why did Vince dislike LA Knight? He just felt the character was stale and a bit boring. Michael says, Nixon was just saying on a Twitch stream 2 months ago she was trying to get signed by AEW. I'd have a hard time wrapping my mind around why she would do what she did. And she's not really given us much in the way of answer as to why. Not really given us much of anything. Dave says, Timeless Tony Storm said she loves working for Tony Khan and AEW, never wants to go back to WWE to throw pies in Charlotte's face. Yeah, that makes sense. Tony Storm has been absolutely fantastic in AEW, and she's been given the opportunity to be absolutely fantastic in AEW. She would not get that opportunity in the WWE. Kevin, AJ Lee hasn't necessarily disappeared for 2 months. AJ Lee was not under WWE contract. There are people who have said that AJ Lee was under WWE contract. These people are incorrect. The truth is, as I reported a way back, she signed on for 1 match to see how it went. She's interested in coming back. Nothing has been signed on the dotted line yet. Fiend also says AJ Lee is busy. Hector says, with Rey Fenix and Penta heading for a tag team reunion, how soon could you see them chasing the Raw tag titles? Because that could make that division shine as champions. My suspicion would be before WrestleMania, because WWE have been really trying to get AJ Lee and Penta in a ring together. So I think we'll get that tag match relatively soon. I do think it'll be next year, but next year is less than 2 months away. So, Kairi Sane is said to have been feeling the effects of a powerbomb to the outside by Charlotte Flair during Monday Night Raw. She apparently hit her head pretty hard on Nia Jax after completely failing to launch in a way that Flair intended. Kairi Sane folded up when Charlotte was intending to throw her as flat as possible. This is not something that Charlotte Flair or indeed Nia Jax are being blamed for. Hopefully Kairi Sane will be fine for Wargames. She did get a nasty bump on the head, but there's not believed to be any serious damage. That said, she probably shouldn't be in Wargames, let's be honest. Kairi Sane has picked up a huge amount of injuries during her time in the WWE, and we're about to put her in a match type that has caused more injuries than almost any other. So, yeah, not great. Not loving that. Drew McIntyre's suspension is to give him the chance to go out and film a movie. He's due back around Royal Rumble time. That said, the WWE is still not sure what his match will be for WrestleMania. Nothing has been locked in for certain, but they're hoping to have Jacob Fatu back in enough time for it to be him. So Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu looks like a likely WrestleMania match. There is optimism about a return in time for Jacob Fatu, but the WWE are not willing to lock it in just yet and are considering other opponents for Drew McIntyre. Oh. Fiend says, hey Tom, do you think Punk could defend versus Reigns at Mania? I think it's possible, but they're both on the face side, so I find it unlikely. I do think they need someone new, and for me, a heel Jey Uso or a Bron Breakker would be the play. That would be the play here. Bam Bam says, can we expect Bo Dallas soon to appear? Soon is relative. Soon's relative. Fiend says, Drew versus Jacob Mania. That sounds fire. Ashley says, do you think Julia will eventually join the Kabuki Warriors? Why? Why would she do that? Finn says, I could see Drew versus Ilya at Mania. That's a good shout. That's lovely. Ooh. Oh, Michael, we are learning about one of the biggest hypocrisies in wrestling journalism. SRS is claiming that TNA mistakenly reported that the Mike Santana situation is a work. I don't get why he would then report that it's all a work. He says it's his job, but I wouldn't have done it. Now, if that is the case, that's pure spoiler, and that might actually cost that company. That is the sort of news that could genuinely do reputational damage and has a potential to damage that company's finances and incomings. For a company like TNA, which relies on getting people talking, that is a report that shuts down the conversation completely. That does damage to wrestling. I don't understand, one, why this keeps happening, and two, why people keep talking to people that do this. Noob, I will repeat, Charlotte Flair is not being blamed. Charlotte Flair did not hurt Kairi Sane. Kairi Sane got hurt in a move with Charlotte Flair. Declan, I've spoken about Becky's match at WrestleMania next year so many times. And in fact, I've got that to note next. Body Slam this week reported that Stephanie Vaquer versus Becky Lynch is being discussed for WrestleMania. Somebody watches spoiler warning. It's almost like I report so much and people keep forgetting to credit me. They've also said Rhea Ripley is an option, which I also mentioned about 4 months ago. So yeah, somebody's watching spoiler warning. The Body Slam name is coming up a lot in confirmations of what I've already reported. I am starting to think someone's reading between the lines by watching spoiler warning. Calvin says, I heard somewhere the Drew movie rumour wasn't true. The suspension was part of the story. I'm confused. Source it, Calvin. Tell me what the source is, because it's definitely not what I've heard. Kevin says Julia could replace Kairi Sane. You need somebody tough in Julia. Why? Again, there's no connection between them. Bailey said, didn't Sami Zayn sign a renewal? He seems nowhere to be found right now. He wrestles every week, or at least he's involved every week. He's wrestling this week. Thank you, Calvin. E-Wrestling is an aggregator. They do not report news. And Fightful. Okay, so Fightful is the source there, saying that that's not true in the suspension's part of the story. Now, we know the suspension's part of the story. We know that. As regards the movie, we'll find out, because that's what I've heard. There are definitely times me and Fightful have disagreed. You guys can tell me what my record is there. Hector says, Tom, did you think they were going to have Cody cross-pass with Alistair and Zelina without the Drew suspension, or was that always the plan? I think Alistair could be a fresh new opponent for Cody. That was always the plan. Always. Angel says, St. Louis Smackdown is right before Mania. I think we get Cody versus Randy for Mania. Also, if so, will Randy be a heel? If that is the case, then right before WrestleMania, you're going to have Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes having a stare down, and Randy Orton would be getting cheered. So, awkward. I like a good vanilla fudge, Dave, though salted caramel fudge also does a lot of good work for me. I'm a big fan of salted caramel anything. Noob says, what are your thoughts on Frankie Kazarian becoming TNA World Champion? I don't watch enough TNA to really have thoughts, to be completely honest. I'm not going to pretend to be the most well-informed. I have a full-time job. I run a household. I do my part with the housework and the parenting. I don't have enough time to watch all of these different wrestling shows. Another bit on state of wrestling journalism. The Wrestling Observer's Brian Alvarez states that NXT deals start at $75,000 a year. Gigi Dolan, an actual former NXT talent, says that it can be as low as $30,000 a year. Gigi Dolan is a first-hand source. Brian Alvarez is, at best, a second-hand source. So, why are people listening to Brian Alvarez here? And then we return to Body Slam. So Body Slam and Ibu, who used to be on Wrestling Purists and is now in something else called Self-Made apparently, I'm guessing that's a solo thing, says John Cena will be in the Wargames match. Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer, says John Cena won't be in the Wargames match. I'm interested to see, one, who you believe, and two, of those three, who you think is the most reliable source. Now, a quick note on Ibu. I've had my encounters of Ibu before. Before WrestleMania, when we had Marigold, before Marigold launched, and before the TNA deal happened, I reported that in the build-up to WrestleMania, the WWE had reached out and invited people to come and speak with them about potential deals. Now, TNA was invited, and a representative, Ozzy Ogawa, of a as of yet unlaunched Japanese promotion, which would become Marigold. Ibu quoted the tweet reporting it and laughed in my face. He did not apologise or retract this when my report was proven to be 100% correct. So that's my opinion of Ibu and Wrestle Purists. It is amazing how many wrestling journalists go on the attack and are found out shortly afterwards to be not very nice people, especially when they are proven wrong. I remember as well reporting that it was only a matter of time, once Triple H was in charge, before Aleister Black returned to the WWE. I was told that there was no chance. Amazing how often this happens. Hello, Mashup Dad, good to see you. Alan says, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky are at Smackdown tonight. They're getting ready for a fight. Ray says, I'm loving Natalia interviews, especially the interview with Cody Rhodes. Michael says, quite rightly, pardon me, $30,000 is not even enough to make a living. Jan says, Mr. Brian Alvarez, aka -5 stars. Coot says, my wrestling hot take is that Triple H is an underrated in-ring wrestler, as he could work of any style and it would be good. My personal favourite. My personal favourite. You can go with whatever you want, Hector. I appreciate that. Ashley says, Ibu and Meltzer are full of shit. We will be doing a wrestling receipt for Monday's podcast. Hopefully you guys are enjoying that. There will be times when there's more involved in Wrestling Receipt and times when there's less involved in Wrestling Receipt, but we will be diving into that incoming. If you guys are enjoying having that in the podcast, cool, happy to hear it. We'll definitely get you more. Aled says, do you know when or if there are any plans for Britt Baker to return to AEW anytime soon? I've never been able to get any information. Nothing. Big Guy says, Jasmine Nick said in an interview that NXT contracts can go up to $75,000, not $35,000. Yes, but you've just said they can go up to, as in that's the top amount. We were talking about the bottom amount. One says, didn't Ibu also ruin Britt Baker's career? I remember when you called him out, Tom and TK debunked him after Baker left last November. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I called him out. I corrected the record. But as you guys know, more people pay attention to him than me. He was wrong. People still believe him. So, that's where we are. Good to hear, Michael. Appreciate that. Liam, if that happened, then that is what would have happened. Bailey says, are there any other platforms you're investigating to add to spoiler warning? Quite possibly, yes. I'm looking into these things, but once again, less time. It is, and actually, I was watching a video earlier, an Outside Xbox video, which is a gaming channel here in the UK. They've got quite a lot of subscribers, and they do good evergreen content. So you can't just watch their content. It's a lot of good stuff. In their latest video, they made a point of saying that it has never been this hard to be a YouTuber. They are suffering the same issues that I'm encountering. YouTube has peaked. That's reality. YouTube has peaked. It's reached the... Oh yeah, there you go, Ginger. It's reached a plateau. And instead of growing, YouTube has started to shrink. They're moving people away onto shorts, but TikTok is still managing to fit into that area. Also, in general, people don't want rapid anymore. They don't. The age of Twitter is coming to an end. Nowadays, people are recognizing the damage that social media is doing to them, so they don't want to sit and binge anything anymore. People are busy. I ain't blaming no one for that. YouTube, however, YouTube is designed around keeping you right there. Wherever you are right now, you are not allowed to move. That's what YouTube wants. Viewing habits have changed. Also, notifications seemingly just aren't working anymore. Because if you don't click on your notifications regularly, they stop serving them to you. If you don't watch 3 or 4 of my videos in a row, they forget I exist on your timeline completely. Which is why my search results, the way people find me via search, is always the same. They're not searching for Vince McMahon, they're not searching for John Cena, they're searching for Tom Colohue. Because they already know what they're looking for. Me. That makes it difficult to find accidental viewership. That makes it difficult to grow. Because in order to watch me, you need to already know that I'm here. This is why you see so many creators moving out into TikTok. I've been considering Reddit as an example. And there's also plenty of podcast platforms where I can just download the podcast and upload it in other areas. But then, as it's a YouTube podcast, YouTube might not be happy with me doing that. So it does cause concerns, it does cause challenges. And I have had to very quickly rethink my overall strategy. It's not easy. The age of instant gratification is coming to an end. Shorts, TikTok, Twitter, they're not what they once were. And that's why Twitch is very much still going. We just live in a very strange world right now, where the big social media platforms have plateaued and started to shrink. Nobody wants to be available 24/7 anymore. I certainly don't. It's one of the reasons I left. But I will point out, and I hope you guys will test this for me. YouTube tells me that I can now open up my community page to you. So you guys can not just respond to my community page, you can also post on my community page. So if that's something that's of interest to you, please do let me know. I feel like something digging into my ear. I'm sorry, I'm very confused here. Anyway, but if that's something that's of interest to you, please do test it. Pop over to the community page, see if you can post something. Because if you can, that's only going to help it feel more like a community. It's going to feel more like a domain that people can hang out and communicate and speak. Can open topics like a Reddit thread, which is what they're trying to do. The more engagement, the more people will see my community page on their pages. So yeah, if that's something of interest to you, let me know. Ashley says, didn't you report a while ago that Joe Hendry would be signing with WWE? Yes, I did. Fiend says, Ibu is a clown, plain and simple. Michael says, even at $75,000, it's hard to make a living. I absolutely agree with that. WrestleTalk says, hello. Hello, WrestleTalk. Calvin said, did you hear Fandango announce he was retiring? I did not. That's a shame. Dave says, a spoiler warning still on TikTok. Yes and no. Big Guy says, hey Tom, thanks for the clarification. Watch the podcast and one suggestion. Oh, appreciate this. I have to admit the podcast it feels very rushed on some parts, and very happy the wrestling receipt is back. Cool. No, I appreciate that. My concern with content like that is that I am kind of trying to maintain retention by making sure I don't leave big gaps. If it's the case that you think I can afford to slow down a bit, I absolutely will. I'd appreciate that. Can I just ask, does anyone agree with Big Guy there? That it feels like I'm rushing and that maybe I can afford to slow down a little bit? If that's the case, please do let me know. Mashup Dad says Hendry is off TNA and appearing on NXT. Fiend is currently enjoying Black Ops 7. I've just finished Ghost of Tsushima. Made me very emotional in the end. I feel like that was a fantastic game. And yes, I only just got round to it. Matchup Dad says he's going to main roster pretty soon if he's not derailed. Cool. Marcel says yes, brilliant. Ginger Nice says you can afford a few more breaths. Excellent. I reckon timestamps in your podcast could help. Good feedback. Thank you, Declan. That's just something you type into the descriptions. That's doable. Yes, Fiend, I'm going to. I wanted to try Tsushima beforehand. 2025 is not over yet, Dave. Come back to me at some point with that. Bit of discussion as we're talking about it. The podcast episode that we had on Monday was so far my most successful one. So it was the one which was titled Vince McMahon Should Never Return to the WWE. And it actually had lower average view duration and lower click-through rate. But what it had was comments. So what you get is an engagement score. And the higher your engagement score, the more YouTube will advertise your video. So what you do is you take the amount of views that it got. It got 507 so far, but it will continue to get more views in the days to come. So it's had 507 so far. You combine the amount of comments, which is 30, with the amount of likes, which is 40. So that's 70. So 570 views, 70 engagements. Now, some of those comments are mine, but they still count. So 70 divided by 507. So that is a 13.8% engagement rate. Anything above 10% is brilliant. It's absolutely incredible. And that is why YouTube advertised that show to more new viewers. Those new viewers, some of them were weirdos. And you know what weirdos do? They hit the dislike button, which is engagement. And they leave comments, which is engagement. So that's the main reason that was so successful. Now, because it went out to a lot of new viewers, the average watch time was down. It means that my usual average percentage viewed is about 35%. This one was 25 because it went out to a lot of new viewers. And that's how that one works. So technically, while it was a very successful video, YouTube will look at that and think that wasn't too successful. Let's just basically advertise to his established audience for a bit. That's how YouTube works. It builds upon videos that are doing well for watch time, says, oh, well, this person's making good content, let's spread the word. It spreads the word. Those people don't watch all of the content for obvious reasons. They're brand new, they're still working out if they like it. So it thinks, oh, we'll come back inside, and it's expand and contract. I will say, financially, the most successful podcast episode so far, I made $3. $3 in ad revenue. Thank you guys very much for that. But it's just, it's lovely. It's doing very well. Cool, Fiend. Cool. No, Dave, I do not. Dominic's status of AJ Lee and Brock Lesnar. One is signed, one is not. Yes, Mashup Dad, thank you. If you're able to, please do remember to hit the like button. This show also has the engagement rate. So it's the amount of comments still. You guys are currently posting a live chat, but you can also leave comments if you'd like to. And the amount of likes. Still the same sort of percentage, but that determines how full the room gets. Which is why I'm constantly pushing for more likes, because more likes means more viewers, which means more likes, which means more viewers, etc., etc. There are Bailey, but I've not got round to really exploring them. Go for it, Fiend. It's a lot of fun. Interesting matchup. Big Guy says, I wished you fully explained again the Uncle Harper and Uncle Howdy. Also expected you to tell the lightings they used on Bray's promo and Arena Live promos especially. I've covered all of that previously, but it's nice to know there's still more you'd like to see. Yes, Fiend, I do think she will be. What have we got left? Yeah, quick thing. Planning has started for a new AEW video game. The last one, while it cost an incredible amount of money and was not considered a success, did bring new viewership to AEW. They believe they can make something better with less money and less mistakes this time, so they are confident the next one will be an improvement. Planning has started for a new AEW video game. You're right, big guy, and I appreciate that feedback. I am going to go digging in the days to come. It's just about finding time while also planning for Christmas and trying to fix floorboards. Okay, guys, we have been live for 55 minutes. We peaked at 77 viewers. We're now on 41 likes. Appreciate all of you for that. But I'm going to call it a weekend and have myself a lovely big long nap. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.